The night was older than time itself, steeped in a silence that felt alive. A pale moon hung over the forest of Dareth, bleeding silver across the treetops. Every creature in the shadows moved with caution, for the scent of wolves ruled this land, and not just any wolves, but those who bore the mark of the Alpha King Dot in the heart of the kingdom. The fortress of Arravale rose from the mist like a black crown. Its walls whispered with enchantments, its stones soaked in blood from wars long past. There, behind iron gates and under the ever-watchful moon, lived Kael'draven, the Alpha King, a man cursed by prophecy, feared by every soul, loved by none. They said Kael's howl could shatter glass, that he'd been born during the blood eclipse, when the moon burned red and the first alpha magic awakened. His reign brought peace, but at a price. His heart had turned to ice. And no woman could withstand his wolf's fury. None, until her Dot far beyond the capital. In a quiet woodland village called Mistwood, a girl named Elara lived her life as though she were a ghost. She spoke to no one. She laughed at nothing. She walked through the village each day with a basket of herbs and a face the color of morning frost, distant. Beautiful, untouchable Dot to the villagers. She was the mute girl, an orphan taken in by the old healer. But what no one knew was that she chose her silence. For 8 long years she had not spoken a single word, not because she couldn't, but because the moment she did, her secret would spill into the world, and the Alpha King himself would come for her. And Elara had sworn she'd rather die than be claimed. Her secret had begun when she was only 12, the night her mother was killed by the king's soldiers. The memories still burned in her dreams, the torches, the steel, her mother's voice whispering, "Run, my child. Run and never speak, for your voice is the key that binds you to him." Her mother had marked her shoulder with blood and moonlight before she died, leaving a crescent scar, the symbol of an alpha's mate. But her mate wasn't just any wolf. He was the Alpha King himself. If he ever found her, the bond would complete. And her life would no longer be her own Dot, so Elara hid her voice and her power, living among humans, pretending to be simple. Harmless, invisible. She learned to smile silently, to cry without sound, to pray that the bond sleeping inside her would never wake. But fate does not forget. 8 years later, on the night of the hunter's moon, Elara felt it, the shift in the air, the pull in her chest. Something ancient and terrifying stirred beneath her skin Dot. It began as a warmth in her throat. Then came the whispers, deep, commanding, calling her name. Elara. She froze in her cottage, her breath catching. The voice wasn't her imagination. It was him, the Alpha King. He had found her. She staggered back, gripping her chest. "No," she mouthed. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. She hadn't spoken in years, hadn't dared even whisper to herself, yet somehow he had felt her again. She ran through the forest, barefoot and breathless, her long hair tangled with leaves and moonlight. She didn't know where to go, only that the pull was growing stronger with every step. Then she felt it. A presence. Wolves, soldiers. They were already in the woods. Hunting. The seer was right. One of them murmured to another, "She's alive." Elara hid behind a tree, trembling. She could smell their blood, their steel. These were not ordinary men, they were shadow wolves. The king's most loyal pack. She waited until they passed, then ran deeper into the forest, into a place where the trees grew black and the air smelled of old magic. There, at the heart of the woods, stood a ruined shrine to the moon goddess. Elara dropped to her knees before it. "Please," she whispered soundlessly, "don't let him find me." But her wolf stirred beneath her skin, whispering back, "He already has Dot at the same moment." Miles away, in the great hall of Arravale Castle, Alpha King Kael'draven stood before the royal seer. "You said she was dead," he growled. The seer trembled, her blind eyes glowing faintly blue. "She was my king in every sense, but breath." She hid herself behind silence. Even her wolf sleeps, but now she awakens. Kale's golden eyes burned brighter. Where? In the mists of the northern wood, the seer whispered. The one he marked long ago? Kale's chest tightened. The bond he had tried to bury for years now throbbed like a living flame. He had tried to kill it, drowned it in battle, buried it in duty, silenced it with war. But it was still there. She was a child when I lost her, he murmured. Why would she run from me now? The seer's lips curved faintly. Perhaps because you became the monster she was told to fear. Kale's jaw clenched. Then I'll show her what kind of monster I am. He turned to his guard. Assemble the pack. No one rests until she's found. For 3 days, the kingdom stirred with chaos. Soldiers marched north through villages and valleys. The moon waxed full, glowing like an almond dot in a mistwood. The people whispered, "The Alpha King is coming." Alara felt it in her bones. She could no longer hide. When the soldiers finally arrived, she stood silently among the villagers, her hood drawn low. The captain's nose flared as he walked past. He stopped when he reached her. "You?" he said, stepping closer. "Take off your hood." She obeyed, lifting it slowly. Her pale gray eyes glowed faintly beneath the torchlight, too bright, too unnatural. The captain narrowed his gaze. "You're not from this village." "She's mute," said the old healer who had raised her. "She can't speak." The captain tilted his head. "Can't speak." He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Take her." The villagers gasped. The healer fell to her knees. "Please, she's harmless." But the soldiers didn't listen. They bound Alara's wrists with silver and led her away. Hours later, she stood in the throne room of the Alpha King. The hall was vast, shadowed, filled with the scent of pine and blood. The king sat upon his throne, tall, broad, his face carved with power. His golden eyes glowed like molten fire. When Alara entered, the air seemed to shift. Every wolf in the room lowered their head, growling softly. Kale rose. For a long moment, he said nothing. He only stared. "Remove her chains," he said finally. The guards hesitated, but obeyed. Alara's wrists were freed, and the heavy chains fell with a clang that echoed through the chamber. Kale stepped closer. Her heart raced. She didn't dare look up. He stopped a breath away. "Look at me." She didn't look at me. His voice was deeper this time, almost a growl. Slowly, she lifted her head, and when their eyes met, the bond roared to life. Kale's wolf surged forward, snarling inside his chest. The room trembled. The torches flickered. His pulse pounded as the scent of her hit him. Wildflowers and storm rain. "Mate?" He whispered. Elara flinched, as though struck. The court gasped. The seer's prophecy had come true, but Kale barely heard them. He was already reaching for her, and she, trembling, stepped back. He froze. You know who I am." Her lips parted, but no sound came. He searched her eyes, confusion turning to realization. "You're not mute." Her breath caught. "I can feel your wolf," he said, voice trembling between anger and awe. "Why do you hide it?" She said nothing. "Why do you hide yourself from me?" Tears welled in her eyes. She looked away. Kale exhaled sharply and turned to his guards. "Leave us." When the hall was empty, he spoke again, softer this time. "You think I'll hurt you?" She shook her head. "Then what are you afraid of?" She hesitated, then touched her throat and pointed to the crescent mark on her shoulder. He froze. "You bear my mark." Her silence was answer enough. Kale stepped back, as if struck by lightning. He understood. She had been his all along, and she had chosen to stay, silent to escape him. The realization cut deeper than any blade. 8 years, he murmured, his voice breaking. 8 years you ran from me. Tears streamed down her cheeks now. He closed the distance between them again, his voice rough. "You think silence will keep me from you?" Her heart pounded as he reached out, but stopped inches from her skin. His hand trembled. I could command you, he said softly. But I won't. Speak to me and I'll set you free. Stay silent, and I'll never let you go. The choice hung in the air like a blade. Alara's lips parted. But again, no sound came Dot, so he turned and walked away. His chest heavy with anger, confusion, and something far worse, longing. Chaol did not sleep that night. He sat alone in his war chamber, staring into the flames that crackled inside the hearth. Maps lay scattered across the table, territories, patrol routes, bloodlines, but none of it mattered. Not when her scent still lingered on his hands, and her silence haunted him like a ghost. For 8 years he had buried every feeling beneath the weight of duty and war. Now, one look from her had cracked the armor he had built around his heart. She ran from you. His wolf growled within. She feared you. Chaol clenched his jaw. She had reason to. The world gives no mercy to a king, nor his mate. He stood abruptly, his chair toppling behind him, and left the room. He didn't know where he was going, only that he needed to see her again. Elara stood by the balcony of her tower chamber, staring out at the endless dark forest. The wind tangled her hair, carrying whispers from the wild. She could still feel him, his presence, his pain, his confusion. The bond between them pulsed like a heartbeat, alive and relentless. Her wolf wanted to answer, to go to him, to finally stop running. But the curse would not allow it. Her mother's warning echoed again. Your voice is power. Elara, once you speak, the Alpha will claim you. And when he does, his fate will mirror yours. One will die for the other to live. Elara pressed her hand to her chest, whispering silently, I can't let him die for me. Then, a knock at the door. She turned. The guards stepped aside, and there he was. Chaol entered quietly, wearing no armor this time, just a dark tunic and the weight of 1,000 unspoken thoughts. I told myself I wouldn't come, he said, but I couldn't stay away. He approached slowly, his steps soft against the stone. You haunt me, Elara, every breath, every shadow, every dream. I thought I was free of this bond, but the moment I saw you, it felt like I'd been waiting centuries just to look into your eyes again. She looked away, her heart trembling in her chest. Why won't you speak? He asked gently. Not as my mate as yourself. She turned her gaze to the moonlight, her lips parting as though she wanted to. But nothing came. Chaol's expression softened. You don't have to hide from me anymore. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the silence between them was louder than any scream. Then, without a word, she stepped back. Her meaning was clear. She could not, would not, break her vow. Chaol's hands curled into fists, but he didn't move. You think your silence will protect me? He whispered. Then let me be damned. He turned and left, slamming the door behind him. In the following days, the castle grew restless. Rumors spread like wildfire. The king had brought home a strange mute girl, and her eyes glowed under moonlight. The council wanted answers. Your Majesty, said Lord Adric, his second-in-command, you cannot keep her here. The people whisper that she's a witch. Chaol leaned back in his chair, his voice cold. Then let them whisper. She stays. She's dangerous, Adric pressed. You've seen her eyes. And the seer's warning. I know the seer's warning. Chaol cut him off. His hand gripped the armrest of the throne. She is my mate. That is all that matters. Adric hesitated. And what if she's the reason your wolf grows restless? The reason the northern packs rebel? What if her silence hides something darker? Chaol's gaze snapped to him, golden and lethal. Enough. The room fell silent, but the words stayed in his mind long after everyone had left. That night, Elara dreamed again. She was running through a forest drenched in blood and moonlight. Behind her, the sound of a wolf howling echoed. Closer and closer until it became a voice. You can't run from destiny. Little wolf. She turned and saw Chaol, eyes burning like the sun, his hand outstretched. You are mine, he said. and I am yours." Then the earth opened beneath her feet, swallowing her whole. She woke with a gasp, drenched in sweat. The bond thrummed violently in her chest. She knew what it meant. His wolf was calling her. And this time, it wasn't just longing. It was pain. Something was wrong. Down in the dungeons of Arravale, Chaol stood facing his own men. The rebellion had begun. Northern warriors had attacked one of the border villages, claiming they followed a forgotten bloodline. The true heirs of the Moon Goddess. Chaol had gone to interrogate one of the captured rebels. But when he entered the cell, the man laughed through his broken teeth. "Your reign ends soon." "Alpha," the prisoner hissed. "When the mute witch opens her mouth, your heart will stop beating." Chaol froze. "What did you say?" The man's grin widened. "Your mate's silence keeps you alive. When she speaks your name, the curse completes." Chaol's fist crashed into the man's jaw, silencing him instantly. But his words cut deep, because they matched the seer's first prophecy. "The one who awakens your heart shall still it." Chaol returned to his chambers that night, his thoughts a storm. He found Alara by the fire, her face pale with worry. "Someone told you." She signed with trembling hands. He stared at her, chest heaving. "Is it true?" She looked away. "Look at me, Alara." His voice broke through the silence like thunder. "Is it true?" Tears welled in her eyes. Slowly, she nodded. Chaol single quotes S breath caught. "So that's why," he whispered. "That's why you ran. Why you never spoke." Her tears fell freely now. She reached out, as if to touch him, but he stepped back, his heart breaking with every inch of distance. "I would have died for you," he said softly. "You didn't have to die for me." He turned toward the door, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't care about curses, Alara. I care about you. But I won't let you sacrifice yourself again." The following weeks were filled with tension. Chaol became distant, ruling by day, vanishing by night. Consumed by the growing rebellion and the knowledge that every breath he took was borrowed from her silence, Alara stayed in the tower, feeling the bond weaken. She could sense his pain through it, his rage, his loneliness, but she couldn't reach him. Every time she tried, her throat burned with power until one night, she couldn't take it anymore. She went to him. The great hall was empty. Save for him, standing alone beneath the moonlight streaming through stained glass. His armor was bloodied. His hands trembled as he rested them on his sword. "Why are you here?" he said without turning. She stepped closer, silent as snowfall. "You shouldn't be near me," he murmured. "If I lose control," before he could finish, she placed her hand on his back. The contact sent a shock through both of them. His wolf surged. Her magic responded. Chaol turned slowly to face her. "You shouldn't have come." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. He reached up, cupping her face in his blood-stained hands. "Then at least let me hold you before the world ends." And for the first time in 8 years, she let him. He kissed her not with hunger, but with heartbreak. Every ounce of power between them flared. Their wolves howled as the bond deepened, unfinished, yet unbreakable. When they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. "I don't care if it kills me," he whispered. "If this is what death feels like, I welcome it." She mouthed, "Don't say that." But he smiled faintly. "Then speak it aloud, little wolf. End it or save it. The choice has always been yours." Her lips trembled, and for a heartbeat, she almost did, but she pulled away, tears spilling down her face. Chaol watched her leave, knowing she just saved his life again, and damned both of them to agony. The war came without warning. At dawn, the skies above Arravale bled crimson as the northern armies marched under banners of bone and ash. They called themselves the Children of the First Moon, zealots who believed the Alpha King's bloodline was cursed, that the goddess had forsaken him when he bound himself to the mute witch. Chaol stood upon the castle ramparts, armor gleaming in the rising light, eyes locked on the sea of soldiers below. The drums of war thundered across the valley. Edric stood beside him, grim and loyal. We are outnumbered 3-1. Chaol drew his sword, the ancient steel humming with power. Then we fight like wolves. We do not yield. Below, the gates opened, and the roar of battle consumed the world. Alara watched from the tower as smoke and screams rose into the air. Her heart tore with every clash of steel, every cry of pain that reached her through the bond. She could feel him, every wound, every surge of rage. Every drop of blood spilled dot, and then she saw it, a figure cloaked in shadows slipping through the chaos. Below, heading straight for the keep dot, her blood ran cold dot. It was the seer. Same woman who had cursed her at birth, who had whispered the prophecy that destroyed her life. Alara ran, barefoot. Breathless, she tore through the corridors, her magic sparking with every step. She reached the great hall just as the seer appeared from the shadows, her silver eyes gleaming like knives. "So it is true," the seer hissed. "You broke your vow and returned to him. Foolish child, do you wish to doom the Alpha you love?" Alara's lips parted, but she forced herself not to speak. She signed furiously. Why? Why curse me? Why us? The seer's laughter echoed like shattered glass. "Because fate chose you when it should have chosen me. You carry the voice of the moon goddess herself, and only your silence keeps her power sealed." Alara's eyes widened. The curse wasn't just death, it was containment. "If you speak," the seer continued, "your voice will awaken the goddess, and the world will burn." Outside, Chaol fought like a beast unleashed. His wolf half tore through enemy ranks, claws and steel flashing under the blood-red sun. But even in the chaos, he felt something. A sudden surge of power from the keep, wild and ancient. "Alara!" He growled, turning toward the castle. He sprinted through the flames and fallen men, bursting into the great hall just as the seer raised her staff toward Alara. "Step aside, Alpha!" The seer commanded. "This is beyond you." Chaol roared, his wolf form flickering beneath his skin. "No one touches her?" The seer smiled. "Then die with her." Her staff struck the ground, sending a wave of black fire across the marble. Chaol raised his sword, the ancient runes on its blade flaring gold. The clash of light and shadow filled the hall, shaking the stones. Alara was thrown back, crashing into the steps of the throne. She watched in horror as Chaol and the seer battled, light against darkness, love against prophecy. When the seer struck him across the chest, Chaol fell to his knees, blood spilling onto the floor. "Now you see," the seer whispered to Alara. "The only way to save him is to speak." Alara crawled toward him, tears streaming down her face. Chaol looked up at her, pain etched in every line of his face. "Don't," he rasped. "Don't say a word." But the seer laughed. "His heart won't last another breath." Alara's magic surged. Her throat burned with divine power, begging to be released. She cupped Chaol's face in her trembling hands. He smiled faintly. "If this is my end, let it be by your voice." Her tears fell onto his skin, and then, for the first time in 8 years, she spoke. "Chaol." The sound of his name was a melody of moonlight, beautiful and terrible. The world froze. The seer screamed as light exploded from Alara's mouth, shattering the curse. The castle walls cracked. The sky split open. Chaol gasped, his body arching as golden energy poured through his veins. The curse transferred from her to him, and then beyond, into the very heart of the goddess that watched from the heavens. When the light faded, the seer was gone. The hall was silent. Chaol lay still in her arms. "Chaol?" she whispered, her voice fragile and raw. He opened his eyes slowly, weak but alive. "I heard you," he murmured. "Your voice," he smiled faintly, "was worth dying for." She shook her head, sobbing. "No, you're not dying. Not now." But deep inside, she knew the curse was broken. Yes, but at a cost. Part of his life had been given to sustain hers. The war ended with the fall of the Seer's army. The sky cleared, and for the first time in centuries, the moon shone pure and silver over Arravale. The people called Alara the Moon-Blessed queen, but she didn't care for titles. She cared only for the man who slept beside her each night, his breath faint but steady. Chaol never fully healed. The curse had left its mark. His strength faded a little each day. Yet he never complained. "Every dawn I wake beside you," he'd whisper, "is worth a lifetime of pain." And when his final day came, he looked at her with that same fierce tenderness and said, "Promise me you'll sing again. Alara, the world needs to hear your voice." She kissed his lips, tears falling like rain. "I will." He smiled. "Then I'll hear you in the wind." He closed his eyes, and the bond between them pulsed once, twice, and then grew still. Years later, bards across kingdoms would tell their story of the mute girl who carried a goddess in her voice, and the Alpha King who loved her enough to die for her. On nights when the moon hung full over the forests of Arravale, travelers swore they could still hear a woman's song drifting through the trees, soft, haunting an eternal dot, and if you listen closely, you could almost hear another voice in the wind, answering her with a single word, always,